What's up guys, today I explain you Bleach 1000-Year Blood War, Part 3, Episode 5 Preview. The episode will see the return of some familiar faces. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe this channel, because we are close to hit the 1,200 followers and now have fun with the video. The most obvious thing about the upcoming Against the Judgment is that it will finally make true Aizen's long-awaited return. This isn't because his arrival on the battlefield was a big surprise that was kept under wraps up until last week, but because 1000-Year Blood War was never subtle about Aizen's eventual return and involvement in the war. Not only was his momentary release from his underground prison hinted at ever since Bleach's grand finale began, but it's been made more inevitable and obvious by the conflict. After Captain Commander Shunsui Kyoraku offered Aizen parole in exchange for his help in the war against the Quincy's in Part 3, Episode 3, The Dark Arm, Aizen was nowhere to be seen in last week's The Betrayer, even if a quick appearance would have given the episode's title a cool double meaning. That said, Aizen did close that episode by reciting that week's poem in the stinger. What exactly Aizen will do upon returning to the surface and whether he'll hold up his end of the deal or not has yet to be seen, but things will undeniably be tense. After all, Aizen wasn't just Soul Society's most infamous traitor, but one of Bleach's most consequential villains as well. He sparked Soul Society's civil war after covertly undermining them for centuries and almost ending the world in his failed quest for godhood. Following what happened in the manga and without spoiling too much, none of the Gotei 13 have forgotten Aizen's atrocities, nor will they ever forgive him. Captain Commander Kyoraku is more than aware of this, as evidenced by his inner thoughts during Captain Jishiro Yukite's sacrifice, where his lifelong friend gave his life to honor his parents' deal with Mimahagi, the Soul King's right arm. The current head captain chose to preserve life itself no matter the cost. If this meant negotiating with a monster like Aizen, it was a price he was willing to pay. Aizen's return in the next episode is also another way 1000-Year Blood War continues to tie up Bleach's loose ends. From the very beginning, Bleach's grand finale filled in many of the series' most gaping blanks and answered its oldest mysteries. One of the biggest revelations was how Aizen was responsible directly or otherwise for nearly every pivotal tragedy in Bleach, most notably those in Ichigo's life. Aizen may not have done it himself, but his machinations turned Ichigo into one of the most overpowered shonen heroes in history and led to the death of his mother, Masaki. It's no exaggeration to say that, without Aizen, Bleach's entire story wouldn't have happened at all. Ichigo having the powers of just about every known supernatural race isn't even an entirely good thing. He was only given such immense power before he was even born because doing so aligned with the plans of villains like Aizen and Emperor Yhwach. To Aizen, Ichigo was just his most unexpected yet successful test subject. Following Yhwach's mockery of Ichigo's hero complex and using his own Quincy blood against him in previous episodes, it would be interesting to see how Ichigo and Aizen would interact in the near future. Their reunion is still a long way off, given that Ichigo is still up in the Soul King Palace, but them crossing paths at least once before Bleach finally ends is a foregone conclusion. The most shocking and exciting thing about The Betrayer was how it changed so much of Ichigo's reunion with Uryu atop the Soul King Palace. In the manga, Uryu made quick work of Ichigo and his friends by shooting the floor from under them and letting them fall to their apparent deaths. But in the anime, Uryu fought Ichigo to a standstill before he blew a hole in the ladder with a fatal arrow to the midsection. This anime-exclusive fight wasn't just well-made and tense, but it was a more convincing execution of the same plot point. Without spoiling the finer details, Uryu's way of winning the Schutzstaffel's trust in the manga was needlessly convoluted. It was also obvious that his ulterior motives shouldn't be taken at face value. Conversely, the anime made Uryu's betrayal against Ichigo more believable to both the elite Sternritter except Jugram, Hashwolf and audiences. Now, even those who read the manga aren't so sure of what Uryu's next moves will be, and what his reasons for turning his back on his friends are. Although Against the Judgment will most likely give Aizen and the surviving Soul Reapers the spotlight, it could still dedicate a few scenes to showing Ichigo's fate. While it makes sense to leave him out for most of the episode just to keep viewers on the edge of their seats, they still need some assurance that Ichigo wasn't indefinitely taken off the battlefield. It's also obvious that Ichigo isn't dead. Dragging out the Betrayer's cliffhanger would only grind the pace to a screeching halt. After all, fans know that it's only a matter of when, not if, Ichigo bounces back from his loss to Uryu and challenges him again. Only Ichigo can knock some sense into his friend and stop Yhwach from effectively ending all life in the known universe. What's more, the anime added new scenes where Uryu only now discovered that Ichigo had Quincy blood in him. This meant that Uryu was not the last Quincy as he believed for most of his life. What Uryu will do with this information and how he'll react to it could be shown in the next episode, or saved for later. The other major cliffhanger that Against the Judgment could follow up on is Yhwach achieving godhood. As if killing the Soul King wasn't enough, Yhwach absorbed his remains Mimihagi, who is currently tethered to Captain Yukitake, and became an inhuman mass of eyes. As seen in his rematch with Ichigo in Part 3, Episode 2, Kill the King, Yhwach was already unfathomably powerful when his omniscient eyes were closed. When he opened his all-seeing eyes, Yhwach became near unstoppable. How exactly Yhwach plans to reshape reality with his newfound powers has yet to be shown and explained, but Thousand-Year Blood War already expanded his backstory and motivations through new flashbacks and scenes. Should Yhwach appear, even if briefly, in the next episode, his reasons will most likely be deepened a bit more before the true extent of his endgame is revealed. Additionally, the immediate fallout of his new form will be seen by all. Things can and will only get worse from here on out for everyone, including the Quincy's, who are all disposable to Yhwach now that the Soul King's son became God in the most literal and biblical sense.